Okay, let's see. I am live. Okay. How are you guys? Happy February. Happy second day of February. I'm a little late. Wanted to do this yesterday, but anyways, I'm here. I'm just going to make sure that I'm live and that's on track, and then we will get started. If you are joining me, okay, perfect. I see it. If you're joining me here for the Soulcast and Energy Report, say hello. Tell me where you're joining from. So excited to see you here. And how was your January? How did that go for you? There was a lot of energy. I was looking back at my notes for January, and there were so many cards that were one cards that were like new beginnings. And it's so fascinating because as much as there was new beginnings and that we were setting, kind of putting the seeds down for what we want this year, it also very much felt like there was endings. Because of course, with every new beginning, something has to come to a close, something has to shift, something has to be let go of, so we can fully step into the very next thing. So it was interesting because I felt with as many new beginnings, there was also so much energy of grieving. I personally felt a lot of grief this last month. I felt a lot of old stuff coming up for final completion so the new cycle can start. So I'm really curious what February is going to look like. And I definitely feel like January was a month that contained a lot of surrender and allowing ourselves to be in this process of unraveling what was so the new can begin. So interesting stuff. But anyways, I would love to start channeling and seeing what the energy for February is. So I am going to jump in and pull the card. We have 29 days in February. So that hasn't happened in 4 years. We have no retrogrades this month. Not a one, right? So how freaking exciting is that? We don't have any. So just so you know, retrogrades are where a planet gives us an opportunity to go over old ground, to kind of look at something from the past. And with no retrogrades, it's like full steam ahead. And so I've already been feeling that February is going to kind of have a quickening effect, that things are going to start picking up, because although there was a lot of planting new seeds last month in January, it takes time for all of this to come together, right? It's not going to just happen overnight. So let me tune in and see what the energy, what the card is for overall for February. And we'll jump into this. Have some fun. Okay. This is great. Victory and success. Love that. So with this card, just going to take my notes here. You can see that it's a 6 card. It's got the, purple color, which in this deck means it's very spiritually oriented. And so when I get this for the month of February, I get this resounding message about coming into soul alignment for the greatest success that you can have. This is a feeling that it's time for everyone to get really connected to their deeper truth and to not ignore or be in denial about what's not working. There's this feeling that if you want to have this overall feeling of success and feeling like things are coming together, that you can't do it from a broken template. That's what they're telling me. What's a broken template? I've never even heard it said that way. So essentially what Spirit's telling me is that we have these beliefs that create, this like an energetic template, like these programs, right, that we have carried on since our childhood, these like very deep survival programs. And this month is this incredible opportunity to look at what feels like it's broken, maybe what's not working. And I don't mean broken as in you're broken, but what might not allow you to go full speed ahead? Where might you have some energetics based on some belief systems that aren't supportive and just need to be retired? So this is a feeling this month that if you can get your energetics right, if you can get into soul alignment, that there's just, it feels like a boomerang, pulling you backwards and then shooting you forward. And it's exciting, it's exhilarating. There's a lot of momentum this month, and there is a need for high spiritual discernment, because I feel like your energy is going to be pulled in a lot of different directions. So when that happens, you do have to be mindful of what you're saying yes, what you're saying no to, what you're surrounding yourself with. All of that stuff. Your energetic environment is very important. And I'm going to go back to that soul alignment that they were talking about, is that for February, in order to feel that things are aligned, you just might need to come from a new perspective. That might be the thing that shifts the energetic template, if you will. So a quick example, and then we're going to move into the different weeks of February, but an example would be your relationship to something outside of yourself. So whether it's your relationship to money, your health, your success, whatever it may be, I want you to be very mindful this month that when you make that be the end all be all of who you are, that is an energetic structure that you've created that will never fulfill you, that will never get you to feel like you're in the totality of who you are, because you're always going to feel like it's never enough. So even if you made, 100,000 one month, like 1 month, 1 year, whatever your number is, and then, let's say you double it and you're doing better, then you start spending more, and then you have all these new habits, and then there's still that feeling of, oh my gosh, well now I'm making this much and I can't keep up with everything. So it's this sense of like, no matter how much you have, there's kind of like this new level, this new energy of like, I can't keep up with this, because it's not coming from a grounded, safe place within yourself of, I'm detached, I'm making this kind of money, that's great, and it's not, my self-worth isn't defined that way. So I'm not really attached to how all this goes. I'm just going to do my best. Because what spirit wants to see this month is you retiring your addiction to suffering, any way that you might be suffering, because you have outsourced a lot of your power. There is a need, to have victory and success and have a smooth, flowy month and see things moving and forward momentum. There is a great need to be clear about the energetics that you're approaching, the things outside of you, your external things that are part of your world. And I did a reel on this recently. You're going to be in relationship to all those things, but what type of a relationship is it? Is it a relationship that if it doesn't work out the way that you want, then all of a sudden you feel terrible about yourself? Or is it a relationship where you can view it as an observer, and then you can take accountability and responsibility for what part you need to have in it from a very detached perspective, so you can have the victory and success you want? So lots of momentum this month, lots of ability to really rewire some patterns that are keeping you stuck and stagnant. Okay, so that's the month of February's energy. So I'm going to let's see, since I'm going to start with the 5th, since today's the 2nd, I'm just going to kind of cluster the 1st through this next week of the 5th all together. So let me tell you what the energy is going to be for this. Okay, so we get the High Priestess. So starting the 1st and going all the way until I pull the next card for the 12th, this is going to be the energy, is the High Priestess, coupled with that theme of the month, which is victory and success. So this card. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite cards, because if we could all be in touch with our intuition, life would be so much easier. How does this card want to be expressed for the month of February? So we do have a new moon in Aquarius on the 9th. So we do have an opportunity to plant our seeds for Aquarius energy, which is very, futuristic and very community oriented, very much the groups and organizations we hang out with. That's the collective energy. Obviously, it's going to fall in a different place within your own chart. So look at Aquarius for you and see what house it falls into. But this card really just feels like you're slowing down, you're getting in your body. And instead of rushing and trying to make decisions from that place, you're really slowing down and you're finding your internal presence. There is, for whatever reason, in this month, especially maybe to identify some of these patterns I was talking about for February, it's really important this first week to slow down, because this is the fascinating part. Everything else feels like it's going to be speeding up because there's no retrogrades, because it's like kind of the energy starts to move. I think this is Chinese New Year. This is coming up this next week. So we have a lot of like momentum and energy going. And it feels like there could be like a wobbliness to this. Like you might like kind of like jet forward and like step forward and be like, okay, I got to go. I got to do all these things. And Spirit's saying your greatest asset during this time is to slow down and receive. This is the 2 card, which also feels like there's a very feminine kind of, I don't know why, like a receptivity. Obviously, it's a high priestess, but in relationship to that which you want to receive. So when you go about this week, it would be really helpful to spend time solo, whether on a walk, whether you're in the shower, whether it's you journaling, and asking higher self, what is it that I need to be focusing on? What is it that I need to do? And, it's kind of funny that Spirit's kind of reminding me, like, everybody sets all these goals in January and everybody's like, I'm going to conquer the world. Truly, I feel like the energy kind of starts to pick up in February. And then by the new moon in Aries, it's a go, right? That's when the astrological new year starts. But what they're saying is those, typically right now, our energy has been in a little bit of, kind of a hibernation. And it's been a little bit, it's winter in the Northern Hemisphere. And so whether it's winter or summer for you, I know up here it's kind of a quieter season, right? And so you may feel with this momentum that's happening with the planets and everything and just the energetics, like, oh, I just want to like go out the gate. Like it's like almost like if you're at a horse race and they shoot the gun and the horses are off running. You can do that, but it's not going to serve you. They're saying slow steps, slow movement wins the race, like slow, steady, and really understanding with each intentional step what you're doing. Like you'll be better off this week with mindfulness than just full-blown action. So it's like it's coupling it together so that you can have a really fantastic week. There's a lot of perceptivity. There is some energy. There's a lot of innovative energy coming through, probably because of the Aquarius, new moon, but there's a lot of innovative energy to work with. So for some of the outdated things that you've been trying to do that haven't been working for you, you might just get your directive this week. You might get a download that is like, okay, this is what I need to do. Like I couldn't see it before, but now this is what makes sense. Okay, I got it. So lots of innovation, lots of new streams of consciousness coming in, a lot of light codes coming in. And what do light codes mean? Light codes essentially meaning that, well, I don't know if you guys have been feeling it, but like even the Schumann resonance this last week was so high. There was a night, I think it was on Wednesday night. It was Tuesday night. I couldn't even sleep because the Schumann resonance was like so high. So there's a lot of light being blasted. I think there's solar flares. There's all sorts of stuff going on. And so it's easy to get overwhelmed and out of our bodies when all of that is happening. So they're saying there's a lot of light coming into the planet. And it's important. And that's where you might get your downloads and new innovations for things. But they're showing me the word responsibility. It's your responsibility to take care of yourself so that you can be a conduit to receive the messages. Because it feels like this week for a lot of you, you might get the missing piece of the puzzle. Like maybe there's something that you've been working on or something's been going on and it hasn't fully made sense to you. This week, it might be like, oh gosh, yeah, that's why things were slowed down, or that's why that project didn't take off, or that's why this conversation hasn't gone anywhere, because I needed this extra information. So it feels like there's a lot coming in, but I'm also hearing around this responsibility that if you're unhappy with where you're at, that this week is a great week to take responsibility for how you're tracking and really understand that if you want something different in your life, then you're going to have to create a new way of being, thinking, feeling, all of that. So it's as if this week provides this deep clarity on what the support is needed and maybe what the new thing to step into is, like the new way of being, the new way of thinking, the new storyline, the rewritten story. So there's lots of responsibility so that you can move forward in a very aligned way. So yeah, big psychic insights, being very connected to your body. So take care of your body, drink lots of water, do Epsom salt baths if you feel a little overwhelmed, trust the insights that come in. And more than anything, take action on your insights. If you're receiving some really great information, don't just kind of push it to the wayside and say, oh, someday I'll listen to that. Or, no, like, what are you waiting for? And I know soul directives through our intuition can be really challenging. It can be really challenging to follow because they're not linear and they don't always make sense. And I've become really good at listening to what my intuition is trying to tell me and taking these big leaps of faith. And yet it doesn't make it any less difficult. No matter how many times you've done it, there still might be a part of you that's like, well, I know I've done this and it worked out. But there is this sense of really having to be responsible for the life that you want and what you're going to create, because it feels like there's lots of energy and motivation to create if you're responsible with how you're interacting and dancing with life this week, especially with your intuition and taking action on it. Okay. So that is for the 5th. Okay. So now I'm going to do the 12th. So let's check out. And that new moon in Aquarius will be a great opportunity to think about the organizations and the groups that you're associated with. And really think about how you might want them to shift over the next 6 months. If you've been going through a social cleanup, this might be a great new moon for you to get more clear collectively on what you want your groups to look like. Okay. So let's see. And if you're leaving me comments, I apologize. Let's see. I cannot see. Let me take a second and look because I actually want to see his. Oh, wait. Let me just take a second and look. Put that on mute. Oh, hi, Rochelle. Hi, Alexandra. Hi, Lauren. Okay. I just wanted to see who is on here so I could at least say hello. Hey, Shannon. Okay. So let me go back to the 12th and tell you what I'm picking up. What is going on? Okay. So we get the emotional loss card the week of the 12th. And this could maybe seem to you as like, oh, that feels like a negative. Well, actually, what I really love about this card is the number, the 5, and our heart. Like it's that green energy. It's associated with our emotions. It's associated with trusting our heart. So let's say you're doing this life in a way that there's enough change for you right now that you're a little uncomfortable, because coming from January, where there's a lot of seeds planted, into February, where I said the theme is going to be victory and success. If you're going to have victory and success this month, right? Part of what you need to do after following your intuition last week and trusting that is you need to allow for things to shift and change, right? We don't get different results in our lives without first becoming somebody different, operating from those new energetics that I was talking about. And so this week, you might feel that the overall feeling I get is that there might be moments of disorientation mixed with moments of like, this feels great. I actually feel that there's a lot of pleasure mixed in with this sense of disorientation, feeling like, how do I hold all this? And I feel like I went through a lot of this last month. So I'm going to speak to this just as, so you can see what I mean by this is being in a new city, new state, not, making new friends, doing all these things. I found myself really excited with all the changes, but then, making all these new friends, let's say, but then I was thinking about all the things I left behind too. And it's so fascinating because the past can be really like a nostalgic place for us if we want it to be, especially if you feel like your life right now is not going the way that you want. It's really easy to romanticize the past and be like, oh, God, things were easier back then. Oh, this relationship was better back then. I was happy then. And the past is just a reference point for you. And I would love for you to use it in such a way that if you are unhappy with where you're at right now, because there's a sense of too much change happening, so you're uncomfortable, lean into it and ground into it. This is a week to process all of your emotions, to not bypass the discomfort of the changes and the momentum that you're starting to feel. And if you sense that you're going in your mind, like my girlfriend and I always joke around, we're always like, it was so much easier, 10 years ago. And it's kind of interesting. It was easy, maybe let's say 10, 20 years ago. It was easier because I wasn't as conscious of the choices that I was making. I wasn't in a role of being responsible for my life and being devoted to creating it. So I was kind of like, there are certain things I was, doing that I was very responsible to my work and all these whatever relationships I was in at the time. But I also wasn't fully responsible for every action I was taking, for every choice I was making, for what I was either committing to or not saying yes to. There's always a cost of inaction, right, in our lives. And so when you think about your consciousness and where you're at, and if you do feel uncomfortable this week, I want you to think of it as like, oh my gosh, this is a good thing actually, because I'm awake. I'm paying attention to all the different things that are happening in my life. And yes, this discomfort is my growth process. And while I grow, I accept, allow, and embrace all of the things that are showing up. You're not going to bypass. So you may feel a sense of, grief of how things have changed. But I also just want you to like allow that to come up, bubble up to the surface and move it, but don't go back to the past and romanticize it. What if you could just look at it, the past as like, it's done? Because it's done. And so find the ways that you can get romantic about the present moment and get excited about what you're co-creating and what you're doing in your reality versus either the past or the future. Like I love futuring because that's what I teach all the time and having a vision and a feeling, but everything happens in the present moment. So the future is basically an opportunity for you to tune into how you want to feel now, right? So that you can be a magnetic, so you can magnetically draw in that timeline that matches your feeling state. When you go back to the past, and you're nostalgic and you're like, I'm not happy with where I'm at now, you're literally creating a divide of energy for yourself, and you're not staying in this moment. So if you go back there, just pull that feeling and go, oh, I remember what it felt like to be joyful in this particular situation in my life. Bring that in, but don't stay there. Come back to the present moment. And the last thing I want to share about this card is when we're experiencing lots of changes, our brains are doing a number on us, right? The survival part of your brain is like, oh, I can't do this. This is too much. And it just wants to go back to the normal. And it's not going to stop until you find your new normal. I know this because I'm living it right now. There's a fantastic book called The Mountain Is You that talks about what your brain does during a time of a lot of change. But what I was going to say, I was listening to a Gene Keys reading from my dear friend, Ashley. I'll have to tag her in this. And she does amazing, amazing Gene Key readings. And she said to me, in the present moment, when you're manifesting, because this feels like it's based upon you growing and moving towards what you want. It doesn't feel like it's just like a punishment or torture. Okay, let's be clear. But when you're, she said it like when you deny a package, like let's say the UPS or Amazon guy is like, hey, I have this package for you. And it's a package of grief, or it's a package of discomfort or anger or whatever it may be. And you're like, no, I don't want that. Like, I'm too busy. Let me go just leave it in the corner. You repress it. What you're telling the universe, right, is I'm not open to receive. And therefore, the packages, let's say, that are still on its way, like it's like the next package can't come until you open and process this current package. And I just loved that thought of you may be blocking your own manifestations when you are blocking yourself from feeling. So let this card be a reminder that feeling and allowing it to move through you so it's done is part of the process of creation. It really is. It's just part of you being human, and it's not going to bowl you over. It's not going to be too much. Like, you can handle it. And then you open up the space that way for new things to come in and for these new beginnings, this new momentum just to be fluid. So not every single one of you may be sad, but it may just be discomfort, or you might feel that growth edge of like, oh God, I'm right on the edge of this thing and it feels uncomfortable. I'm changing, I'm expanding. Life is looking a little bit differently than it used to. And there may be this like kind of feeling of like, just kind of wanting to ground in. So do lots of grounding work this week too. Lots of grounding work to support you and feeling safe and devoted. That's the word I get for this week. It's like a devoted to your growth, devoted to allowing yourself to be in the space of wherever you're at. It's devoted. So see how you can work with that word that week. Okay. That is the 12th. And now let's go to the 19th. Okay. The 19th is hope. I love hope. Okay. Hope is the star card in their traditional tarot. So, this card, let's see. It's funny because I was talking about for February with the theme being victory and success, that we have to really be open to receive all the light and all the energy that wants to come in. And one thing that I've noticed when we are in a process of healing and moving towards what it is that we really want, there is that shadow side to it sometimes. And what I mean by that is following the trajectory of where you want to go or who you want to be. So this, think about the North Star, is a process of claiming and owning and accessing your self-worth. What I mean by that is, if you say to me, if I was working with you as my one-on-one client, you say to me, Dawn, I want to, be this type of business owner and leader in the community and, have this type of family or whatever. And my job is to support you in getting there, because you would say to me, this is my purpose, is to be a leader in my community and with my children, or whatever it is for you, right? Then as soon as you claim that, right, then the process starts of healing forward. And healing forward means that everything that is out of alignment, because remember I started this, February is all about soul alignment. So everything that's out of alignment is going to show up, the shadowing material, so that you can become one with your vision. You can become the energetic match. So this card feels like you're straddling this week a little bit when there's a full moon that week in Virgo at the end of the week, which is, Virgo is always like, how are we taking care of ourselves? How's our health? How's our body? How are we in service to the work that we really want to do on this planet, the healing? So it feels very much, even this big, burst of light feels to me very much like there's an expansion, but you have to do the work. You have to sit with your shadows and the light and be with that energy so that you can continue to tick forward with everything. This week, there may be some fun synchronistic opportunities and events that really support you in getting more aligned with your purpose. And your purpose being the thing that lights you up, right? The thing that you're claiming that you want to be a part of or do or whatever. That, I ultimately say your purpose is a being. It's a being. So I always think of, how do I want to feel? How do I want to be in my life? And this energy feels very much like there's a magnetic draw and pull. So like when you say this week, yeah, I really want to step into more of this type of work, or do more of creative stuff for myself, or play more, or whatever it is that you desire to be very connected with yourself and where you're heading, it feels like the doors open up. Like you'll just like find something online, or a friend will say to you, hey, I've been taking this amazing cooking class. You should join me. And it just feels like it's easy. So find the ease this week in the process and stay aligned. This might be also a great time to get reattuned to some of the things that you said you wanted to do for January. Like go back to that list that, if you did, and, go back and look at all the things that you said you wanted to set out to do and be like, how am I tracking on that? Like, how is that? Like, if I'm really more into how I want to feel this year, is this list really aligned with that? Do I want to keep this list? Do I want to amend this list? So I would do some of that work too. And they just showed me the solar plexus. And it's really interesting the way they're showing it is like as if there's almost like a rope or some like cord from your solar plexus out into this energy of the quantum field. And so they're just showing me the more aligned you are with your purpose, the more you're just drawing in and connecting to different opportunities that exist in the quantum field. So this is a very fun kind of week to get into what are the potentials that are available to me when I'm not afraid to show up in my truth of what I really want. And this is the caveat. This is the caveat. I want you to be transparent with yourself. I find that this is one of the hardest things for people to do when I coach them. They're stuck in a way, and yet they're not sure why. And then, of course, when I work with them, I'm like, well, it's because maybe you're denying to yourself this fact over here that, like, if you address that, might include you shifting up your reality quite a bit. And so don't be afraid of the messages that come through of your truth when you're really willing to listen to that. Because our lives, I had an incredible session with this woman earlier today, and I said, it's really easy to feel depressed and have a lackadaisical energy and attitude towards life when we are not living it to the fullest, when we're just like, if our relationship isn't where we want it to be, or our health, like we're just kind of on the autopilot. And this week is like, no more autopilot. Get your shit together. Stop telling yourself lies, like the little white lies that you tell yourself that keep you in this little rat, wheel that you're on. no more. There, like it's very clear, like Spirit saying, you want to get on the love train and where it's heading, which I mean, there's so much. I was telling some of my clients, there's like a fear train and there's the love train. And the fear train is taking you into more of that. And the love train, when you see things through the lens of love, even though there's so much collective chaos going on, it really does support you. And you have to make a choice. And it means that instead of living this lukewarm life, like you decide to like find the passion and excitement. I think we even had the Passion Ignited card last month where it's like, what are you doing to ignite your creativity and those parts of yourself that want a voice? We're not meant to just like be on this planet and just be like these like workhorses and then like come home and do more like work stuff and, or whatever your thing is. There is meant to be some pleasure and joy built into your life. And that very thing is very much has an auric effect when you start to get into that. So don't be surprised this week that if you set the intention, I always love to say this, and I've said this before on different lives, divine, show me what it is I need to see that I haven't seen yet. That's in my blind spot. That would support me in moving forward, even more so than I'm already doing now. Like it's a question, it's a command. And guess what happens? If there's something in your blind spot that's really keeping you from this beautiful card of healing and hope and being connected to the star, the North Star, the light, it'll bring up those shadows for you to heal. And it's going to be extremely alchemical and very amazing. And those truths that you tell yourself are going to support you in moving forward. Big time. I had a little truth talk with myself this morning around something with my finances. And I was like, you know what? I need to be better with tracking stuff. And, I was kind of, irritated about something with my bank account. And I was like, well, if I should really start to, do a better job with my budget and just like stuff like that, it was a truth talk with myself because I hate all that stuff. This is just not something that's fun for me. So where might you be creating more suffering and more problems for yourself and not moving towards where you need to go and healing because you are unwilling to tell yourself the truths that you need? So that's the message for the 19th. Okay. Last but not least, the 26th, the week of the 26th. Let me see. Okay. So we have the wisdom card. And this is it's a Hierophant in the traditional tarot, but the wisdom card is super supportive of the overall theme for February, which is that victory and success, spiritual victory and success. And I love this card because it feels very practical to me right now. It feels very much like, what are the organizations? What are the groups? What are the things, the teachers, that you are around that really support your growth and evolution? Who are you surrounding yourself with, especially to help you stay in a high vibration, but stay in great mental acuity? And, where might you be having to engage in learning some more and being involved in those different kinds of things? So this just feels like, first, look at what might be calling to you this week. There might be a class or a group or something that you want to be a part of that is very supportive of your growth and expansion. So that's the first thing. Second thing I want you to think about with this one, because we're been on this journey this month of really listening to our intuition, a letting go process, a surrendering and allowing process so that we can keep receiving our manifestations. And then lastly, kind of straddling the shadows so we can alchemize the light. So that's been the storyline so far for February. And this is where we come into some wisdom, and we might seek out the support in the external world to support us in all of that. It's also like, what beliefs, in your becoming of who you are, what might you need to retire so far? Like what might not be working for you anymore? And where might you come into some mastery? I don't feel like we have these challenges just so that we can be tortured. I actually think it's all part of a sequence of events. And if you find yourself in this repetitive story around something, then you're in the lesson. You are in it and you're in it good, right? And the whole thing is, well, because I started off this February Soulcast saying February is going to be a great opportunity. We're going to end it with it in this last week. It's a great opportunity to look at your quantum energetics of how you are supporting your reality. Like, how are you building it through your frequency, through how you're feeling? And I was saying, if you notice that you're in a diminished state of your frequencies operating from shame or guilt or fear or all these things, even though you might have things going well in your life, that's not going to support you. That's going to create lots of suffering. So you get to examine the energetics and the subconscious beliefs that have created the structure of your reality. And boy, oh boy, is it fascinating how deep it goes. Like, I have this program that I've been working with within myself, like the Good Girl program, and it's interesting to me because over the years it gets less and less and less. But it was something, obviously from my childhood. You have yours from your childhood, right? Whether it's the people pleaser, the good girl syndrome, or not wanting to be the bad girl, or whatever the thing is, or guy, like, it doesn't matter if female, male, we have the subconscious beliefs and programs. And when we have this card, this is a card of change. It's saying, if you want to step into the next thing, then you've got to examine the beliefs that create your reality. And I find myself still wanting to make sure I'm perceived as good in some way. And I had a little funny thing happen to me this week when I met somebody and I said something that it was not a big deal. But we were just talking about something, and I said, I just had a reply, and I could tell that my reply didn't jive with her. And I had this interesting moment where I was like, wow, I could, because I was really good at this when I was young, like I could edit myself and say the reply in a different way, like fix it, like find a way to fix it and like kind of match her energy and like move on so I don't feel uncomfortable. And you know what I did instead is I let myself be I was very hyper aware of what was happening. I didn't try and change anything. I noticed how she turned, like I could feel her energy shutting down and her turning away from me because I said something that wasn't aligned with her beliefs. And I was so proud of myself because in the past I would have been like, oh, Mom, let me fix this. And I was like, you know what? Who are my people? Who is it that I resonate with? Because when you're in a new city, right? Like I am, you're meeting everybody. And I made a promise to myself that I would not edit myself. So when it comes to this card and the energy of who you are you editing yourself? Are you still running an old program? And when you slow down, you have the awareness of like, oh my gosh, that part of me is triggered, but I don't want that part of me to run the show. So I'm going to notice that and I'm going to behave differently. So you're going to get that chance and you're going to notice like, who are my people? Like, who do I just feel so good around? And where might I be able to let go of not just the people, but just the beliefs or the organizations or the things that aren't supportive? And then find your, find the people that really feel good to you. But really notice, as you're wrapping up this month, as you're coming, because there's so many opportunities for momentum and things to spring forward and things to take off this month. And the best way to do it is when you're really paying attention to who you are and how you're showing up, and finding the sacred allies and the groups and the friendships that will support you going and having your best life. Okay, that is February. I hope that you guys have a great one. I know that the astrology, there's lots of astrology. I didn't get into the astrology because I'm doing the energy forecast, but I know there's a lot of astrology, and I do pop on to my Instagram and share little reels about some of that. I hope that you have a fantastic month, and I'll see you guys soon. Lots of love.